Some stories were never meant to be forgotten. Welcome to Whispers in the Shadows HQ. There are doors that should never be opened, questions that have no answers, and shadows that stretch across decades, hiding truths we may never uncover. Tonight, we descend into the abyss of the unknown, counting down 10 of the most unsettling, baffling, and creepiest unsolved cases of all time. Number 10, the Dyatlov Pass incident. In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers ventured into the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They never returned. When search parties found their camp, the tent was cut open from the inside. The hikers' bodies were discovered scattered across the frozen landscape, some nearly a mile away, bizarrely underdressed for the sub-zero temperatures. Some had suffered catastrophic internal injuries, yet showed no external signs of a struggle. What caused these seasoned adventurers to flee their shelter into a deadly blizzard? Was it an avalanche, a secret military test, or something far more sinister lurking on the slopes of the Dead Mountain? Decades later, the case remains officially closed, but the questions echo in the howling winds of Dyatlov Pass. Number 9, the Somerton Man. On a quiet Australian beach in 1948, a well-dressed man was found deceased, slumped against a seawall. He had no identification, and all the labels on his clothing had been removed. The cause of death couldn't be determined. The only clue was a tiny, rolled-up piece of paper found in a hidden pocket of his trousers, bearing 2 words: Tamam shud, a Persian phrase meaning "it is ended" or "finished." This scrap was torn from a rare copy of the poetry book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The book itself was later found, containing a strange, coded message that has baffled cryptographers for over 70 years. Who was this man? And was his death a suicide, a lover's pact, or the final act of a Cold War spy? The Somerton Man remains a complete enigma, his identity as lost as the meaning of his final message. Number 8, the Hinterkaifeck murders. In the remote German countryside of 1922, a small farm named Hinterkaifeck became the scene of a crime so brutal it still chills the bone. 6 members of the Gruber family, including their young children and a new maid, were systematically slaughtered with a pickaxe. The details are horrifying. Days before the murders, the father had spoken of mysterious footprints in the snow, leading from the forest to the farm, but none leading back. He heard footsteps in the attic and found a strange newspaper. Most disturbingly, evidence suggests the killer remained on the farm for several days after the murders, tending to the livestock and eating in the kitchen while the family lay dead in the barn and their beds. Despite hundreds of interviews, no one was ever charged. The killer seemingly walked into the family's life, annihilated them, and vanished back into the shadows from which they came. Number 7, the Isdal Woman. In 1970, hikers in Norway's Ice Valley discovered the partially burned body of a woman. The scene was bizarre. Her belongings, including her passport and identity, had been destroyed in the fire. Police investigations revealed a trail of coded messages, multiple fake identities, and wigs across Europe. She was a polyglot, fluent in at least 4 languages, and had stayed in various top-tier hotels under different aliases. At the local train station, a suitcase was found containing disguises, but all clothing labels were snipped away. Was she a spy caught in a deadly game of espionage? The official ruling was suicide, but the evidence points to something far more complex and dangerous. The Isdal Woman's true name and the reason for her fiery end in a remote Norwegian valley are secrets she took to her grave. Number 6, the Boy in the Box. In a wooded area of Philadelphia in 1957, the naked, bruised body of a young boy, aged between 4 and 6, was found wrapped in a blanket inside a cardboard box. For over 60 years, he remained America's unknown child. He was malnourished and his body showed signs of severe abuse. Despite widespread media attention and thousands of flyers distributed, no one ever came forward to claim him. His image, a haunting portrait of innocence lost, has been seared into the public consciousness. In late 2022, investigators finally identified him using advanced DNA analysis. But this breakthrough only deepened the mystery. Knowing his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, hasn't answered the most terrifying questions. Who hurt him, and why was his existence a secret kept for a lifetime? The horror of his short, tragic life remains unsolved. Number 5. The Lead Masks Case. In 1966, on a hill near Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the bodies of two electronic technicians, Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana, were discovered. They were dressed in neat suits and waterproof coats. Most strangely, both men were wearing crude, homemade lead masks over their eyes. Beside them was a notebook containing cryptic instructions. 4:30 p.m. be at the agreed place. 6:30 p.m. swallow capsules. After effect protect metals await mask signal. There were no signs of a struggle or violence. An autopsy could not determine a cause of death, partly due to the state of the bodies. Theories range from a UFO encounter to a botched attempt at spiritual communication or time travel. The men had told their families they were going to buy work supplies and a car. Instead, they walked up a hill, followed their bizarre instructions, and met an end that defies all logical explanation. Number 4. The Springfield 3. The night of June 7, 1992, was supposed to be a celebration. High school graduates Stacy McCall and Susie Streeter were attending parties before heading to Susie's mother's house. The next morning, all three women, Stacy, Susie, and her mother, Cheryl Levitt, were gone. All their personal belongings, including their cars, purses, and even their beloved dog, were left behind. The only thing out of place was a broken porch light. There were no signs of a struggle, no ransom note, no witnesses. It was as if three people had simply ceased to exist in the middle of the night. Despite a massive investigation and countless theories, from a stalker to a random abduction, not a single trace of the women has ever been found. They vanished from a quiet residential street, leaving behind a chilling silence that has lasted for over 3 decades. Number 3. The Villisca Axe Murders. On a June night in 1912, an unimaginable evil descended upon the small town of Villisca, Iowa. 8 people, 6 members of the Moore family and 2 young houseguests, were bludgeoned to death in their beds with an axe. The killer moved methodically through the house, covering the mirrors with cloths and draping sheets over the faces of his victims after the act. The town's own minister was a suspect, as was a traveling serial killer and a vengeful state senator. Several confessions were made over the years, but none held up. The crime was so brutal, so personal, and yet so motiveless that it tore the community apart with suspicion and fear. The axe was left leaning against a wall, a silent testament to the horror that unfolded. Over a century later, the question of who walked out of the Moore house that morning remains one of America's most terrifying mysteries. Number 2. The Zodiac Killer. In the late 1960s, a killer terrorized Northern California, claiming at least 5 victims, though he boasted of many more. But it wasn't just the crimes that created his legend, it was his communication. He sent taunting letters and cryptic ciphers to newspapers, demanding they be published on the front page. He gave himself a name, the Zodiac. He threatened to attack school buses full of children and played a cat-and-mouse game with law enforcement, calling them directly after his attacks. His most famous cipher, the 340-character code, remained unsolved for 51 years until it was finally cracked by amateur sleuths in 2020. Yet his identity remains unknown. He was a faceless terror, a ghost in the machine who created a persona of pure malevolence and then simply stopped, fading into legend as America's most notorious, unsolved serial killer. Before we reveal our number one case, a reminder that the line between history and horror is often thinner than we think. These stories are not just tales, they are the echoes of real lives cut short, leaving voids that may never be filled. Number 1. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. In 1937, Amelia Earhart was the most famous female pilot in the world, an icon of courage and adventure. She embarked on her most daring journey yet, to circumnavigate the globe. On July 2nd, during one of the final legs of the flight over the vast, empty Pacific Ocean, she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished. Her last radio transmissions were strained, reporting that she was low on fuel and couldn't see the tiny island she was aiming for. Then, silence. The largest search and rescue operation in naval history at the time found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no trace. Did they crash and sink? Did they land on a deserted island and perish as castaways? Or, as some darker theories suggest, were they captured as spies? The disappearance of Amelia Earhart is more than a mystery. It is the vanishing of a legend at the height of her fame, a final, unsolvable flight into the endless blue. From the frozen mountains of Russia to the empty skies of the Pacific, these stories linger. They are whispers in the shadows, reminders that some questions have no answers and some secrets are kept forever. The shadows never forget. Thank you for joining us in the shadows. If you find these stories as compelling as we do, please like this video, subscribe to Whispers in the Shadows HQ, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a descent into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious.